Morning, we're live tracking the growing debate over who should pay for extra security during the murder trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. Now, Monday, the GOP-led state Senate passed a measure that would force Minneapolis to pay for the cost of bringing in police from other cities. Normally, a city that receives help through a mutual aid agreement would pay back the assisting city directly, and in the past, Minneapolis hasn't had a problem doing that. But there's some outstanding mutual aid bills from last summer's riots and protests, so Republicans want to cut some funding to the city. Democrats called the bill an attempt by GOP to penalize city leaders for their efforts to restructure public safety. Here's what Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka had to say.
Very, very frustrated with the city of Minneapolis, the leadership that over and over and over talked about defunding the police. And worse than that, on a regular basis spoke terribly about them.
Now, House DFL lawmakers were expected to take up legislation that would create a $35 million fund to help pay for mutual aid situations, but tabled debate after the Senate passed their own bill. House Majority Leader Ryan Winkler said he wanted to negotiate a compromise with GOP Senate leaders, but their actions Monday made it clear that, quote, it's impossible to have a reasonable conversation. So if you'd like to read more about this, we do have the story posted on our website right now, KARE11.com. But yeah, something has to be done. I mean, they have to prepare for the worst. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it looks like both sides are digging in on this one, unfortunately. So hopefully they'll be able to come to some kind of discussion at least. Thanks, Alicia.